I knew America was fucked up, and I knew what type of people I was dealing with. It just meant when I was talking about America, America wouldn't give enough time to understand what type of person I was. I didn't have anything written, so I decided that I would just express how deep my information was. At this point, I didn't care about what type of person I was, and I didn't care about what type of relationship I was in. I just knew that if I mentioned a certain you know who, it would be a person that didn't understand what type of person they were at the moment. I knew that if I had a person that was on my side, I would be a happier person. But today I just feel like I'm unhappy with how I've been. I've been so sleepy. I didn't have enough time to understand what type of relationship I was in. But I knew what type of relationship I wanted. I didn't want to be a fake person, so I decided I would say something for people to understand what type of person I am. The world was just messed up, and I didn't have enough time to speak about who I was, and America didn't listen enough. I listened to enough American people to understand what kind of information was in the world, and then people knew that I was a person to understand what type of information I had. The computers that consoled my life were just part of a library that used the internet every time. The internet wasn't a high speed internet, but it kept me patient enough to understand what type of world I was in. It wasn't too many what's in this conversation, but the speeches that kept interrupting my normal day would just be a sort of information that if I said anything unimportant, it would sound like it was just a low class of information. But the stupidity of American people that existed in the world just weren't here. The people that weren't here or weren't here enough just didn't understand that I was a person that understood what type of information I had. So the computers were just a false sense of security. The security that I possessed was just a system that wouldn't be here anymore. And I knew that if I had the information here, I would be here. It wasn't about the books, and it wasn't about a blueprint that somebody just so happened to make a popular style. It was just a style that was scientific and methodical. It wasn't a method or say per person that would understand. It just meant that I wasn't into music, and I didn't care about the music or films that existed in the world. The people didn't pay me enough attention, but I knew it was only because of a specific reason. And the specific reason was I was just an unpopular person at the time, but I had more information to gather and had more information to offer the world. But it was entertainment that my heart solely was possessed by. My heart solely was possessed because I knew that the artistic point of view that I had and the materialistic lifestyle that I wanted to live was waiting for me. So it wasn't a give, but a promise that I would make the world, and the world knew I would be there in 3 short hours. The internet was just a poor excuse to make up. The internet was just a poor excuse to make up a bunch of other excuses, but I didn't excuse myself from being hated. I just knew that I was a hated person at the time. I wanted to be thanked for all the glamorous. If we're gonna say words, we're just gonna say glorious, but it wasn't glory I was after. It was a clear victory, and the words that I thought I could use weren't there for the moment, but it didn't mean I was an unimportant person. It just meant that I was there for the moment. America didn't want to be bothered by an unimportant person that didn't know what type of words he wanted to use. But I knew the internet was just a failure overall. There was a bunch of pornography and huge art materialistic people that were on the internet using rap tunes and popular culture records. I knew that if I threw a couple trailers around, people would just notice, but they wouldn't understand how deep the message would be. The message was so fucking deep, I couldn't get the words back. I just knew that if I said some huge word, America would go, whoa. But I knew it wasn't charismatic, and I knew it wasn't the type of stuff that I wanted to be part of. It was just something that people understood, but I was failing to understand what type of world I was in. And I knew that if I said the word, I wouldn't think about it. But it was a word that was so gorgeous that if I said it, the experience would be unimportant. I decided that my high frequency generator was not a fail, but the beginning of a huge start. The beginning was just a part of the information, but the second part was just another envelope for other material that would later be abused if nobody understood the control panel. The control panel was just a noisy room with a bunch of people, but the same thing for me. It just meant that I was noisy enough for the people to understand that if I ever got in trouble, the police would be here to arrest me. But I never got arrested by the police, and the police didn't care enough to care about me. So I paid $500,000 worth of information and a computer to keep me solidified as the dominant force to be reckoned with. But the forces weren't reckoned with. It just continued in a snowball-like effect. I didn't want to be happy anymore, but I knew happiness was the only way to survive. So I decided that the world wasn't big enough, and I didn't want to be a fake person and lie about what type of relationship I was in. The type of people that I was associated with knew I wasn't a fake person and knew I had a lot of people to understand, but America just wasn't there anymore. It was like America wanted to be overrun by a bunch of hooligan-like characters on the internet. There were no names, but the characters were so mysterious that I couldn't say what type of people they were. I didn't like how I felt, and I knew the world had to be dealt with. America kept getting played out by long messages, but I knew the long message would make sense later in the future. 2016.